talk a little bit about the business model, and can you actually talk to us too about like one of the biggest security threats that you've seen so far, if you can talk about it?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The business model is very recurring revenue heavy. It has to be in this industry. So when we deliver our service, when we deliver our product, it's very much on a recurring revenue model, high margins. I mean, you'll start to see that as the financials start to trickle out, which we should probably answer that question at some point when they're actually going to be popping out there with our filings. The model is very, very profitable. Prior to any acquisitions, reach out, prove that it was scalable because of how we actually structured internal operations and the services we were delivering to customers. We were running in the 30s as far as net income. It was absolutely fantastic. And I say was because now we bring on acquisitions. Of course, the acquisitions are not quite as profitable. They're running not horrible, right? Because we won't target acquisitions unless they're profitable. We're not out there to save anybody's ass. That's not our position. We need people that already have profitable companies to join this movement that we have. And so when we look at that, they might be in the teens. But we did this even with our first major acquisition. As soon as we took over, within 90 days, we were able to make that thing more efficient and got them from around 16% to about 24%. So just in 90 days, continuing to move it up. And that's just economies of scale and efficiencies that we've made with the company. We're so process-oriented within this organization. We're a unicorn in the space. Even to the point to where we got vendors, like there's one called IT Glue that has, they're a documentation platform, right? You throw information up there about your customers. You can write your own knowledge base articles. They brought us on just to teach other people how to actually use it, how to actually have this process-oriented system. So when we bring people on in acquisitions, it's like, yeah, we really know what the hell we're doing because as of like last week, we have over 980 self-written articles on how to fix shit, how to handle breaches. So it's done the same way every single time. That's what makes us so scalable because we inject our operating model and our efficiencies into our acquisitions, increase the net income by double digits, and then also increase the recurring revenue by double digits. And we just keep rinsing and repeating, man. It's amazing.
Wow, it sounds like you have a pattern. You mentioned Kevin Harrington, and that's a name that's been creating a lot of buzz, in the community. And so, talk about a little bit about your relationship with him, and is there a strong camaraderie being built? Are we going to see him being more vocal in the scheme of things at Reach Out?
Yeah, absolutely. We were just talking on the phone this week, literally about that. And he and I met at it was an entrepreneurial mastermind. It's called Board of Advisors. It's it was meeting in Sarasota, Florida for the longest time. It's moving to Tampa now, not too far down the street. And with him, I met him, and he was actually going to come speak at one of my events because I met him there. We kind of hit it off. But then we started having breakfast every single quarter at these meetings. I just walked up to him. I'm like, dude, you want some company? He's like, yeah, sure, sit down. So we started to get to know each other. Our second or third breakfast, because we were planning at Reach Out that time for a Regulation A offering, a Tier 2 offering, right? It was our first foray into the public space. Those who don't know Reg A, it allows a private company to sell shares to the public. You still have to have audited financials, and it all makes sense because it gives you a greater level of legitimacy to what you're doing. So talking with him, it was our second or third breakfast. This was in 2019, 2020. And we're starting to form, like you said, the word camaraderie is probably the best term. We're starting to do some content together. We're speaking at some of the same places together. And while we're having breakfast, I'm like, why don't you get involved in this? I'm like, this is my plan and where I'm going. He looks at me. He's like, Rick, I don't get involved in anything I don't understand. And I have no idea what cybersecurity is. I'm like, all right, great. I mean, at that point, I'm like, what do I say to this? I'm like, how are your eggs? We just go right back to breakfast. But then over time, it got to be to where it was 2021. And it was in the middle of a breakfast. And I said, Kevin, it's been another year, man. Come on now. This is the progress that we've made. We're about to launch the Reg A. And he's like, Rick, I still don't understand the business, the industry. And I look at him like, Kevin, it's a roll-up. It's like, oh, well, okay, I could do that. But the way he talks about it, because that's my perspective, right? That's my side of the story. What he has said on stage, because he's introduced me at some big industry events, he's come out and just supports the hell out of me, man, supports the hell out of what we're doing. One of the best things that I'm just humbled to hear from him is that when he introduces me from his side, he goes, during that time period, because I did say no right away. I actually watched Rick. And man, this just, it chokes me up a bit because he says everything that Rick told me he was going to do and that was going to happen actually happened. And that showed me that he was a guy of integrity, and that's really why I got into business with him. And since then, he's been on the board. He's been an amazing mentor of mine. I mean, even going through working some of the deals, he's jumped on one of our previous acquisitions to actually get it across the finish line with the sellers, and he'll do that anytime. So he's not a hands-off guy when it comes to reach out. He'll jump right into those conversations with sellers to push the stuff across the finish line to get the best deals for us.
That's awesome. And you know what? I think that integrity, and that's for these publicly traded companies in the OTC, those are far and few between. And one thing that we're doing here at the BFC is bringing on the real ones and the ones that have the strongest potential. And so I like what I hear. Guys, make sure you put some. Oh, John Don says right here, going to do a much deeper dive on this company. Thanks for coming on the BFC. Another great supporter there.
Yeah, please do. Yep.
And so I think that's important. People want to be reassured. They don't want a CEO just to blow smoke. And honestly, that's what a lot of it is, because the OTC is very cyclical. There's catalyst. There's times to buy, there's times to sell. Yeah. And it is very pattern based. And you can look at charts and you can look at how PRs are put out. But it looks like you have your sights set on something far bigger. And it's exciting to be, and this is just one of many conversations I assume that we're going to have, because I'm excited and by the way, I'm not a shareholder yet, not yet. But that's what we're here for. We're here to do due diligence, right, guys? So ask your questions.